Hey, you're here now. Wherever you are, whatever time it is, let this be your escape. Take a breath. Let your eyes grow heavy. You're not alone, not really. But tonight, I'll be your voice in the dark. This story, this experience, is true in the only way that matters. You will feel it. Now, I had to leave. My regular life, the city noise, the predictable chaos, it all got too loud. I needed somewhere quiet, somewhere nobody could reach me, somewhere I could hear myself think. So I rented a house, a small, forgotten place hidden deep in the countryside. The listing promised seclusion, no neighbors for miles. It even said, perfect for introspection. And the photos? They showed a time-worn single-story home, framed by towering trees and a tangle of wild grass. It looked like it had been waiting for someone. For me, I guess. I packed light, didn't tell many people where I was going, just disappeared for a week. The drive out was uneventful, long stretches of road and thoughts too loud to ignore. By the time I pulled up to the property, the sun was tilting low, slicing through the forest in golden shards. The driveway was nothing more than scattered gravel and dirt. My tires crunched loudly over it, and the sound made the silence around me even deeper. When the house came into view, it didn't feel abandoned. It felt paused. The roof sagged slightly in the middle, paint peeled in soft strips along the wooden panels. The windows stared out, dull and dusty, like tired eyes. I stepped out of the car. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and pine needles. A blanket of old leaves crunched under my boots as I walked to the porch. I was alone. Completely. Even the birds seemed distant. And though the day was still warm, a chill passed through me. Inside, the house was aged but cared for. A small living room opened into a narrow kitchen. Just one bedroom, one bathroom, no clutter, no distractions. The floor creaked beneath every step, like it remembered others. Some stains marred the walls, faint, almost like they'd been scrubbed and forgotten. The furniture was sparse, a wooden table, 2 chairs, a couch that whispered with dust when I sat, and a bed in the back room that looked barely touched. There was no TV, just a broken radio on a shelf. The listing said, basic amenities. I wasn't surprised. I didn't come here for comfort. I came for silence, and I got it. That first night, I cooked a simple dinner from the groceries I brought. I read. I sat at the little table, listening to the kind of quiet you forget exists when you live surrounded by concrete and sirens. And it was peaceful, too peaceful maybe, because even the smallest sounds felt amplified. My breath, the pop of old beams in the ceiling, the soft scurry of something in the walls, probably mice. Harmless, I thought. I kept glancing around anyway. The house didn't make threatening noises, just aware ones. Before midnight, I locked the front door, turned off the lights, and crawled into bed. It didn't take long to fall asleep, but something woke me. Footsteps, not my imagination. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, measured, just outside the bedroom wall, right by the window. I held my breath. They stopped, just stopped. I sat frozen in the bed, barely daring to blink. My pulse roared in my ears, then silence. I grabbed my flashlight and crept to the window, heart hammering. I expected to see something, a person, a shadow, even an animal, but the ground was undisturbed. Only my own footprints from earlier remained. No new tracks, no sign of movement. Still, the feeling clung to me, the sense that someone had been there, watching, waiting. By morning, I told myself it had been a dream, but I still checked the perimeter, the trees, the edge of the property, the old well in the back, boarded up, rotting. I even spotted a collapsed barn, maybe 50 yards out, locked tight with rusted metal. When I peeked through the slats, I saw only darkness, but it felt like the darkness was seeing me back. The plan was to relax, to clear my head, but by the second day, I couldn't shake the sense that I was being watched. Every time I stepped around the corner of the house or passed by one of those lifeless windows, I expected to see someone, something. Nothing ever appeared. Still, that weight, that pressure never left me. That evening, as twilight bled into night, I lit a few candles. The overhead lights were dim, and the electricity flickered, like it was trying to hold on to something. I sat in the living room, book open, barely reading. Then I heard it. A thump. In the hallway, it was sudden, heavy, like something had been dropped on the floor, something large. My breath caught. I rose slowly, flashlight already in my hand, fingers slippery with sweat. The hallway stretched ahead, shadows gathering near the bedroom and bathroom doors. I scanned the floor, nothing out of place. Bathroom, empty. Bedroom, still, every piece of furniture exactly as I left it. I turned back toward the living room, trying to ignore the pounding in my chest. Then, another thump, this time from the kitchen. I ran, flicked on every switch I could reach. Lights stuttered and buzzed overhead. I flung open cabinet doors, checked the stove, the sink. Nothing moved. Nothing had fallen. The back door was shut. Front door, still locked. My hands trembled. My breath came shallow. I told myself it was the house settling. That's all. Old houses do that, right? Still, it felt too loud, too heavy, like a warning. I decided to go to bed, hoping sleep would reset something inside me. But I didn't sleep, not for long, because sometime in the night, the whispers started. They weren't voices, not exactly, not words I could understand, just a low, constant chanting, like something ancient murmuring behind a wall I couldn't find. My mouth went dry, sweat gathered on my forehead. My hands stayed frozen on the blanket, unwilling to move. I didn't even want to reach for the flashlight. I didn't want to see anything. I sat there, listening, every cell in my body alert. Then, silence, gone. I finally turned on the bedroom light. Everything looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. I took a slow walk through the house, whispering to myself that it was just the wind. Maybe the trees, maybe my brain, reaching into dreams for answers. But the silence that followed felt heavy, like something watching from just beyond the light. Eventually, I lay back down, but sleep didn't come. Only the memory of that sound, those whispers, echoed in my head. By morning, I was exhausted, but my fear had hardened into something else. Curiosity. I needed to know. When the morning came, it didn't bring peace, just gray skies and questions. I searched the property again, this time with more purpose. That old barn I had seen, the one with the rusted lock. I was going in. I found a crowbar leaning near the side of the house, half buried in soil. It felt too convenient, but I picked it up anyway, the metal cold in my hands. The lock on the barn didn't fight me. It surrendered with a screech. Inside, the smell hit first. Damp wood, mildew, and something older, like burned dust. I stepped in. The air was thick. Still, there was junk, broken furniture, an old dresser, shelves lined with cloudy jars no one had touched in decades. And then, at the far end, I saw it. A circle, roughly drawn, maybe 5 feet across, etched into the barn floor in overlapping stains and soot. It didn't look recent, but it hadn't faded either. The markings had weight, intention. I crouched, ran my fingers over the edge. It felt charred, like something had been burned into the wood long ago. Next to it were old ropes, frayed and stiff, melted candle stubs. It didn't take much imagination to guess what had happened here. Ritual? Sacrifice? Madness? My chest tightened. I stood, feeling the barn press in around me. I backed away, closing the door again, trying to unsee what I had found. Back in the house, I cooked lunch. I tried to read, but something inside me had shifted. That circle felt connected to the whispers, the steps, the weight in the walls, and my fear grew teeth. I told myself if I still felt like this in the morning, I would leave. I would. But the storm came before the sun could. By late afternoon, the clouds had turned the sky to ash. Rain pelted the roof in sheets. And I felt trapped. The house grew darker, even with the lights on. The walls felt closer, the silence more alert. I sat at the kitchen table, watching water trail down the windows. Then the footsteps returned, but this time, they were inside. The first step was soft, then another, and another. They shuffled across the living room floor. I froze, my breath caught, sharp and shallow. The footsteps weren't outside this time. They were inside, moving, deliberate, closer. They crossed the floorboards, paused at the hallway, then turned toward me. I stood up, nearly knocking over the chair. My heart thudded so hard, I thought it might stop. "Who's there?" I called out. My voice felt foreign, thin in the heavy air. No answer, just stillness. I grabbed the flashlight again, my hands slick with sweat, and inched toward the living room. The moment I stepped in, I felt it. The pressure. It wasn't just silence. It was a presence, something thick in the air, like the very atmosphere was holding its breath. I swept the flashlight across the room. Nothing moved. Nothing was out of place. But then, a creak. Behind me, I spun, and that's when I saw it. A shape, flickering near the hallway wall, faint, like a smudge of darkness trying to take form. My beam hit it, and for a moment, less than a breath, I saw it clearly. A figure, shadowy, tall, unnatural posture. It shimmered, then vanished, gone. I stumbled backward, nearly dropping the light. My legs felt like rubber. My vision pulsed at the edges. I staggered to the wall where I'd seen it, my hands trembling, and found nothing except a smudge, just a faint, oily smear on the wood. I touched it without thinking, cold, colder than the air around it. I snatched my hand back, my fingers numb. That night, I didn't sleep. I couldn't. Every sound, every shift in the wind set my nerves on edge. I lay in bed, every muscle tight, waiting for the whisper to return, waiting for the steps, waiting for the figure. And just after midnight, it did return, but not with footsteps, not with movement. This time, it scraped. The sound was delicate at first, a soft scrape, then another. It came from the bedroom window, slow, deliberate, like claws against the wood. I jolted upright, heart jackhammering against my ribs. I ran to the window and flung it open without thinking. The rain had stopped. The night air was damp and cold. The ground below was thick with mud, shining under the pale moonlight. No one was there. But something had been. I stared down, eyes adjusting. Then I saw them. Footprints, not mine. Fresh, wet, muddy, leading from the living room toward the back door. I blinked, barely breathing. Bare feet, but wrong. They were wide, misshapen. Too many toes, too long, too quiet. My skin went cold. I followed them. The hallway was damp with tension, the air heavy. Each step felt like a risk. But I had to know. The footprints led me to the back door, closed, but unlocked, and I know I locked it earlier. My stomach turned. I opened it slowly and looked outside. Stillness, nothing moved, only the trees swaying slightly in the distance. I turned back. My eyes dropped to the trail of prints. Still fresh, still wrong. I locked the door. Then I locked myself in the bedroom, shoved the dresser in front of the door, wrapped myself in blankets. I couldn't sleep. Not really. Every sound became a threat, every breeze a whisper. I kept imagining those prints, those twisted, muddy impressions, walking back down the hallway, stopping outside my door, breathing, waiting, and through it all. That circle in the barn kept echoing in my mind, like it had called something, and maybe now it wasn't outside anymore. When dawn finally broke, it didn't bring peace, it brought urgency. I threw clothes into my bag, hands trembling. I didn't care how much I packed, I just wanted out. The house had gone still again, but not in a peaceful way. It felt like something was waiting. I zipped my bag closed, flung it over my shoulder, and made my way toward the front door. That's when I heard it. Movement. In the living room. A dragging sound. Long, steady, like something heavy being pulled across the floor. I froze. I didn't call out this time. I didn't want to know. I just walked faster. When I reached the door, my hands were shaking so badly, I fumbled the lock twice before finally opening it. The morning light hit my face, and it felt like waking from a fever. Cool, crisp, safe, almost. I stepped outside, letting the screen door slam behind me. The gravel crunched under my boots as I tossed my bag into the back seat. And then I looked back. The house stood silent, still, but the living room window, there was something in it. A silhouette, dark, tall, slightly hunched, like it didn't quite fit inside a human frame. It didn't move. It didn't blink. I stared, paralyzed by a cold that wrapped around my spine. Then I blinked, and it was gone. Just the glass, just the dust. I slammed the car door, started the engine, and backed down that gravel drive without ever looking away from the rearview mirror. I expected to see it there, the shape, watching, waiting, following, but I didn't. Not then. Still, every bump in the road sent a spike through my chest. Every whisper of wind made me flinch, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. That circle in the barn, those twisted footprints, the smudge on the wall, and the figure watching me leave, as if I had broken some kind of agreement, as if I had awakened something. When I finally reached my apartment, I stood at the door for a long moment before unlocking it. Everything inside was familiar, and yet not. I dropped my bag, kicked off my shoes, and just stood there, still, listening. The silence here was different, less natural, thinner, like a blanket stretched too far. I locked every window, every door, drew every curtain tight. Then I sat on the couch and stared at the ceiling for what felt like hours. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. I told a friend I left the rental early because it was too creepy. He laughed, said old houses make weird noises. I didn't tell him about the footsteps, or the shadow, or the mud tracks shaped like broken people. I kept those to myself, because part of me believed that saying them out loud would make them realer, would invite them back. Even now, at night, I still hear faint creaks in my apartment, little whispers in the pipes, and every so often, when the lights are low and I'm drifting into sleep, I swear I hear the faint shuffle of footsteps across my floor, always stopping just before the bedroom door, and I remember that old house, the circle on the barn floor, the shape in the window, that sense of something watching, waiting, following. I went looking for solitude, but what I found was something else, and I don't think it ever truly let me go. It started again a few nights later. The rain was coming down hard, the kind that drums against the windows and fills the silence with its own rhythm. I was half asleep on the couch, eyes heavy, TV humming softly in the background. Then lightning flashed, just for a second, and in that moment, I saw it, a shape standing at my window, not outside the building, outside my apartment window. I live on the top floor, no fire escape, no ledge, nothing but smooth brick and empty air. And yet, I saw it. A tall, still figure silhouetted in the white light, its head tilted just slightly, like it was watching me, like it knew me. I jumped to my feet, but the next flash showed nothing. Empty glass, but my heart wouldn't slow down. The air felt colder than it should have. A chill crept up the back of my neck. I tried to rationalize reflection, shadow, stress, but my instincts whispered something darker. That night, I barely slept. I kept waking up, listening for the sound of wet feet on tile, for another flash of lightning that would reveal what my mind was trying to forget, because deep down, I knew. Whatever had been in that house, it followed me here, and it had found my window. I tried to act normal. I told myself I was just rattled from the trip. I unpacked the last of my boxes, hung pictures on the wall, even went out for groceries just to breathe under open skies again. But every time I came back to the apartment, that weight returned. like something was waiting for me behind the door. That night, the storm rolled in again. Heavy, angry clouds. Thunder like growling from something ancient. I tried to stay busy. Books, music, anything. But my attention kept drifting to the living room window, to the glass, to what might be behind it. And then I heard footsteps. Not above, not from the neighbors, from inside. Light, soft, but real. Crossing the hallway, stopping near my bedroom. I moved quietly, picked up my flashlight, and crept toward the sound. My breath was shallow, my heartbeat loud in my ears. I flicked on the light, and the hallway was empty. But the air was wrong, heavier, like someone had just passed through. Then I heard it. A whisper, low, close, a voice, not a word I could recognize, but it had weight, intention. It knew me. I backed away, hands shaking, flashlight beam dancing across the walls. Nothing moved, no one stood there, but I felt it, just out of reach, waiting for the dark to return. I needed proof, not for anyone else, for me, to convince myself I wasn't unraveling. So I set up my phone on a tripod, aimed directly at the living room window. There would be no doubt this time. I used an app that could record all night. No motion sensors, just pure, uninterrupted video. I left the curtains open. I needed to see, and that night, there was no rain, no wind, just silence, the kind of quiet that presses on your chest. I slept in the bedroom with the door cracked, the glow from the living room spilling in just enough to make shadows flicker. In the morning, I reviewed the footage. Most of it was still, unmoving, but then the storm hit. Around 2 a.m., lightning flared, and in that brief white flash, I saw it, a silhouette, clear, standing in front of the window, tall, still, facing the glass from inside the apartment. My heart stopped. In the recording, the figure didn't move fast. It glided back and forth, pacing like it was waiting for something. Then it vanished. The audio caught the sound of faint footsteps, soft tapping, a breath, barely audible. I shut the video off. I deleted it. I didn't want to see anymore, but it was too late, because now I couldn't forget. It had been real, and it had been inside. That same day, the sky turned dark again by evening. Storm clouds swelled like bruises over the city. I felt it in my bones. Whatever was happening, it would come again tonight. So I did something different. I left. I needed space, distance. I went to a diner, tried to pretend I was just another person, just another rainy night. I sipped lukewarm coffee and watched the rain blur the windows. But after a while, I couldn't sit still. I had to go back to that window, back to whatever might be waiting. When I returned to my apartment, the air inside was thick. Still, my phone was still recording. I stopped it, and I watched, again. At first, there was nothing. Then, a lightning flash, and there it was, again, the silhouette, standing perfectly still at the glass, its head tilted slightly, not curious, more like studying. It faded, returned, then faded again, almost like it lived inside the reflection. I felt my stomach twist, a knot I couldn't untangle. I deleted the video once more, but this time, I didn't feel safer, because the moment I turned off the phone, I heard a tap, a From the window, I didn't want to look, but I did. The curtains swayed ever so slightly. I reached for the flashlight and stepped toward them. My hand trembled. The beam of light shook across the fabric, and then I heard it again. A soft, deliberate tap, 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 right against the glass. The tapping continued, measured, slow, as if whatever was behind the curtain knew I was listening. I reached forward, fingers brushed the fabric. I took a breath and pulled the curtain aside. The flashlight beam hit the window, scattering through the condensation. Nothing there, but then another flash of lightning lit up the glass, and I saw it, the silhouette. But this time, it wasn't standing outside the window. It was in the window, inside the reflection. Its form warped slightly, like water behind glass. Its face, if it had one, was obscured, but I felt it staring. I stepped back, tripped over the edge of the couch, landed hard. The flashlight skittered across the floor, and when I looked up, the shape was gone. Just empty glass, just the sound of rain. I stayed on the floor for a long time, heart pounding so loudly it drowned out the storm. Then I heard it. The sigh, soft, close, like breath against my ear. But I was alone, wasn't I? I got up slowly, knees aching. I checked the locks, all of them. Checked the hallway, the bathroom, the closet. Nothing. I was alone, but I didn't feel alone. And that's the worst kind of fear, the kind that doesn't need proof. It only needs presence. That night, I didn't sleep. Not really. I sat in the living room with the flashlight in my lap and the curtains drawn tight again. I didn't want to see it, but I also didn't want to not see it. That's the kind of trap it creates. When silence is louder than noise, when you start watching shadows instead of the screen. I sat in the chair by the window until nearly 3 a.m. The storm passed. The rain softened to a drizzle, but the air still pressed in around me, thick with tension. I moved only when absolutely necessary. Even blinking felt like a risk. My eyes burned from the effort of staying open, and then, just when I thought maybe the night had passed without another visit, there was a sound, a soft creak. From the hallway, I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just turned my head, slowly. The hallway was dark, still, but not empty. I felt it again, that presence. Not a person, not a thing, but something that had decided I was its focus, that my attention somehow made it stronger. The next morning, I told myself I needed help. I wasn't crazy, but I was cracking, so I recorded it again. Not for proof this time, not even for answers, but to remember. The next storm came 3 nights later. I was ready. The phone was set on the tripod again, pointed at the window, recording. This time, I didn't stay. I walked to a nearby cafe and waited, watching the lightning flicker across the buildings outside. I kept checking the time. Every minute crawled. After 2 hours, I went back. Rain slicked the streets, and the front door to my building groaned louder than usual. Inside, everything looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. I stopped the recording, sat down, pressed play. At first, just the steady patter of rain, then flashes of lightning through the window, and then, there, the silhouette again, clearer now. It didn't appear suddenly. It formed, slowly, like rising smoke in the shape of a person. Its arms hung low at its sides. It didn't move for several minutes, just stood there, watching. Then it glided out of frame, not walked, glided. A few seconds of silence, then it returned as if it was pacing. My stomach knotted as I watched. It felt wrong to keep looking, like I was intruding on something ancient, something sacred, something sentient. I shut the video off, deleted it again, but this time it wasn't about denial. It was about fear, because the way it moved, the way it watched, it wasn't random. It wasn't lost. It knew exactly where it was and why.